Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race. We are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 278 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am excited that you are here and excited for this episode today. I actually was kind of surprised I could even get this guest at all. She's been on my dream list for many years now, and I had tried and failed a few times to see if I could get people to introduce me to her. And then I reached out to her on Instagram about what you were going to hear us talk about today, and we connected. And I think we have something potentially exciting for 2022 that I cannot wait to share with you, but I'll tell you more about that another time. Today, I am really excited to introduce you to Lucy Bartholomew. She is one of Australia's most prominent ultra runners, as well as, I would guess, in the world. She is someone who is really known for her surprise finish of third place in the 2018 Western States. She also has all these accolades that have racketed, is that the term? That have accumulated, I suppose, over the years with what she has been able to do. However, today we aren't really going to talk about that. Lucy has been on a lot of podcasts and she has shared her story on some of the really big platforms, way bigger than the running space, the big podcasts in the world. And her story's been done. So not that I wouldn't love to hear it, but as we know, there's podcasts, when guests go on all the podcasts and share the same stories, it can get a little bit stale, right? So here at Running for Real, we like to go deeper. We like to talk about different things. And so that's what we did today. We went into some of the body dysmorphia stuff that comes into our lives as runners. We talked about the need to keep driving and pushing and destroying your body in the process. And we talked about change. So this episode, especially with what is going on right now in terms of COVID, in terms of just our lives being flipped upside down, is going to be a powerful one. And Lucy is so easy to talk to. I am really excited to introduce you to Lucy. So let's take one moment to thank one of our sponsors, and we'll be right to this episode with Lucy Bartholomew. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been talking about Tracksmith for years now. They have my absolute favorite clothes. I am wearing them right now to record this. I'm wearing 2 layers of Tracksmith actually to record this. I have the Brighton base underneath and I have one of the zip-ups on top. I wear them throughout my day-to-day life and then I wear them to run. I feel like that is such a good way to get the use out of them. I am passionate about sustainability and these clothes are quality. They last well. The clothes that I've had well over 2 years look exactly the same as the day I first received them. And that is what I think is really important to mention about sustainability. Yes, it is important to use sustainable items and materials when we can, but the best thing we can do is hold on to our items for as long as we can and use the heck out of them. And that is what you can do with Tracksmith. As I said, I wear it in my day-to-day life and then I wear it in my running too, so I get double use out of it. They are so comfortable, they are stylish, they're simple and sleek, and I've asked for some of their stuff for myself for Christmas because I just adore it. So as I've mentioned before, the Brighton base layer, which I'm wearing right now, is one of my absolute favorite items for this time of year. I love the spice color they have right now. They also have a walnut, a charcoal, which is what I'm wearing now. And it is just a seamless, lightweight long sleeve. And it's made from this engineered merino mesh. So you can go to tracksmith.com/collection/running-for-real. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. So you can also just go to the show notes to check out the link there. Or you can just use code TINA15, which will donate 5% of your order to Runners for Public Lands, which is a non-profit environmental organisation dedicated to environmental justice, advocacy and conservation. A fantastic non-profit to support, and 5% of your sales will go to that. So thank you to Tracksmith for that. I appreciate you. I appreciate Tracksmith, and let's get back to the episode. Lucy, I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. Welcome to the Running for a Podcast.
Hey, thank you. I'm just as excited to be on.
Yeah, well, I think you are honestly one of the, I don't know how to phrase this. You're one of the guests that I'm now having on who I think more previous guests have talked about and loved and just raved about than anyone else I've ever had on. Like the amount of people over the years I've been podcasting who have just like just gone on a tangent about how much they love you is amazing. So it's really cool to actually get to to meet you in person, or not in person, virtually, and yeah, get to see that side of you today. So yeah, thanks for joining. It's gonna be fun. Now, I've told you that I'm not going to cover most of the usual things. You are undoubtedly one of the, top ultra athletes that people think about, and you have all these incredible accomplishments. And maybe you could give the listeners a podcast or two they could go listen to if they want to hear all the backstory. Are there any that come to mind?
Yeah, I would definitely say that probably the most relevant and recent that goes back the furthest would be the Pillars podcast with Berman. That one kind of succinctly follows my journey and up until today, really.
Okay. All right. Then I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you want to go hear the backstory, if you want to go hear about Lucy's accomplishments, we'll come into some of them today, but you can go back there. But as you, the listener, know, this podcast is primarily about the human behind the accomplishments, about getting to know the person underneath and digging into parts that have not been covered before. Now, I want to begin with you and I originally set this up because of I saw a post of yours following a post that Cara Goucher did about body image, about being made to feel inferior, about no matter how fit, healthy, strong, how much winning you are doing, you always struggle with your body image, and B, people are always ready to criticize it. Now, you did a post about that on Instagram, and it was very widely received. People really appreciated what you said. But I would love to know from you, like you mentioned about having a very, very low heart rate of under 30 before. Was it you tested before you did Western States in 2018? Was that right? Yeah.
Correct.
And then the following year, you had a crazy year worth of things, things ups and downs, things going wrong. And then the next year, your numbers were higher. But then you were told, you got questioned and said and asked, what happened? And you wrote in this post about it being like, why did no one flag me when my body fat percentage was under 12%, my heart rate was under 30, but yet they flagged me when it went up? So I'd love to hear for you, what Cara said or what the conversations you were seeing kind of triggered you to speak about that in the first place. And then we'll dig a bit deeper.
Yeah, definitely. So I think, I don't know Cara personally, but when I saw that post, it was around the time of the Oregon piece about the BMI testing. And immediately that triggered me thinking about this testing that I underwent at this heart institute. And so this heart institute was doing testing on elite athletes and just seeing, how strong their heart is, doing a BMI, doing a body fat DEXA scan, body fat percentage, BMI, and doing VO2, checking your heart rate and all of that stuff. And so I was part of it in 2018. And when I did that, I had incredibly low numbers. Like you said, my heart rate it barely registered 3 beats in the machine that they needed. So I actually had to raise my heart rate for it to register enough for them to take a photo of it. And then I did my VO2, I had my DEXA scan. I was under 12%. And it was kind of this, all the doctors were like, wow, this is just, we've never seen such a low heart rate. We've never seen you're such a low percentile body fat. It was just encouraged. It was kind of incredible, it was like a Hall of Fame moment. And that really reassured me. It was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. These guys are scanning and working with elite athletes. So I must be I'm doing good. So I finished third at that Western States, but was working this incredibly fine line, an incredibly unsustainable and unhealthy line. I then went back for the 1 year reassessment. And I remember being so embarrassed walking in. I was kind of like, God, they're not even going to recognize me, because my body had changed. It had completely self-imploded is probably what I would say. Hormonally, everything was just gone up in the air and was changing. And they rescanned everything, and they, my heart rate was still low. It's, I am an athlete. It is going to be lower end, but it was kind of like, oh, wow, okay. You're now just on 30. And it was kind of like, okay, cool. And then they did my VO2, and they were like, well, actually per, pound of body weight, you're actually got a higher VO2 this time. And then they did my DEXA scan, and they were like, oh, you're kind of out of that elite athlete percentile, and you're in normal, God forbid. And I remember sitting there and just being, really oh, I've just been my photo's just gone off the wall of fame, and I'm now this normal human, which is just not good enough for their standards. And it was what happened in the last year. And I just, when I read Kara's piece and I read about the Oregon, the Ducks whole thing with their coach, I kind of just thought, people asked what happened when the numbers went up, but when the numbers were so low that I was, clearly unwell, no one asked any questions. In fact, I was put on a pedestal. And I think that that's what we do. We see someone who's, got really low body numbers and is winning, and we're like, this is amazing. This is what to aspire to. When in 2019, when I returned to get reassessed, I was in a much better headspace. Obviously it brought up a lot of feelings in me having to be reassessed and having to that comparison. But I was also I know that I'm much healthier in terms of, I have a period back. I'm much stronger. I've been training consistently, and, I've dug myself out of that hole that happened after the Western States race. So I just felt like that was something that, after reading the piece on the Ducks and then reading Kara's piece, I was just I think the more voices we can put behind these types of issues, the more people that will see it and read it and understand. And, of course you still get comments of well, you haven't won a race since, kind of thing. And it's just it just because my body fat's no longer under 12% doesn't mean that I'm now incapable of running fast and being strong and maybe winning races, or maybe just running for another 50 years.
Yes, absolutely. There's so much I want to dig into there about what you just said. And you and I have had a very similar approach to the way that we used to view the world, and kind of now how you see the world. Going back to where you said there, that 2018 point, at that point, were you aware, I'm assuming you had some disordered behaviors, as you said, you didn't have your period, you said this was kind of a pinnacle, kind of Hall of Fame feeling moment. Was there a lot associated with that in terms of your attitude, your mindset towards fueling and looking after your body? And then from that, that third place at Western States, did that kind of confirm to you, I'm doing the right thing? Or you said about self-imploding, had you already started to realize that maybe it wasn't?
Yeah, really great questions. So when I got into Western States, I got in through this, I was gifted one of these bibs, which is such an honor. My dad's been waiting 8 years to get into this race. And so when I got in, I kind of, when you have that feeling of like butterflies, excitement, nervousness, worry, I was going to do short distances after doing so many 100Ks. I was going to go down in distance and just do short and sharp stuff. I then got into Western States and it was suddenly like, okay, I'm going further. I'm going to go 100 miles. And I just committed myself. I was like, great, like I've got this one opportunity to run this race that me and my dad have always wanted to be at, and I want to do us proud. And so I committed myself. And when you fully commit yourself, it's not sustainable. Like if you're going to fully like you think of it as burners on a gas stove, if you're going to turn the flame up on one, you're probably going to have to turn down another one. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I was doing that. And I think that what I didn't realize is I was training more and I was eating the same, and the balance just went out. When you're training for 100 miles, I think I didn't have that just awareness of like, Lucy, you're running like 19, 20 hours a week, and things are changing. But as they changed, I just got more compliments and I got faster and my numbers got better. And so all of these things got snowballed to be like, you're doing good, you're doing great, like June 24 or whatever. After that, we can chill out a little bit. And so I was always kind of just like light at the end of the tunnel. When we cross that finish line in Auburn, run around that track, you're done. You're going to go away on a holiday with your dad to Mexico and you're going to go surf and chill out. What happened was that I crossed that finish line. I was so stoked. And I was like, I got to keep this ball rolling. Like, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to stop. Like, I just come third at Western States. And then what I think really solidified the issues that I had was that overnight I gained 50,000 followers on Instagram. So 50,000 people started following me, and they started following a version of Lucy that was not sustainable. I was at my lowest weight. I was walking a very fine line, and I knew that I was going to have to put some weight on and change things. And I was all about just getting through Western States. But the moment that things started to change, I had 50,000 people being like, whoa, hang on a minute. Like, this isn't who we're following. Like, she's not what she was June 24 when we saw her finish. And I think that people really struggle to realize that, especially the people that have been following me since I ran my first 100K at 15, is that your body is changing, and especially as a female. And at 24, things are really shifting. You throw 100 mile into the mix and you like drop your weight right down, and then you're going to have to rebound at some point. And I think that a lot of people were kind of like a little taken aback that's what they were watching and witnessing. But it wasn't an unhealthy thing. It was a healthy thing. It's just that they began following me at a point which that was their baseline, which that was not. That was my peak, or well above and unsustainable. But it definitely was challenging to then kind of have this online commentary as I imploded more, which I think snowballed the other way and just made things worse mentally and physically and emotionally. And then cue pandemic, and I was like, thank God I don't have to see anyone for a little bit.
Yeah. So then you said there about the followers, and I'd love to hear your thoughts there as someone who does have a big following. And for most people listening, they're not going to know what that feels like to have people watching, kind of paying attention to you. And I think all of us in society today are very aware. And you and I were talking before we recorded about like, you think in your head, like everyone is thinking about where you are, what you're doing, how your training's going. Why haven't you performed in the last month? All the time, when in fact we're all just thinking about our own stuff most of the time. But so most people wouldn't know to the extreme of what that feels like to have a lot of people. But in that situation where you get, like you said, 50,000 people, and you've had this incredible race, but you also have now got essentially 50,000 eyes of pressure on you. Can you just talk a little bit about like what that did to your psyche in terms of just your daily actions, what you felt you could share, what you felt you were contributing and your value in the world? How did that change things?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really challenging, right? Because you have 50,000 strangers who don't know you apart from this one picture of you crossing a finish line that they've seen, and they're like, sweet, I'm going to follow her because maybe I want to be like her, and maybe I'm inspired by that. Maybe I resonate with it, or maybe I actually just hate her and I just want to comment and write mean stuff on her posts. Like, there is a amount of people that that's why they follow people, is just to be cruel. Yeah. And I think that what I realized, I've always struggled with social media. I've struggled with, I eat a plant-based diet, and I get told that that's the wrong thing to do. I get told that that's the best thing to do, that I should do it better, that I should do something else. If I go running, it's too long, it's too far. I'm wearing Solomon shoes. I shouldn't be wearing those shoes. They're hindering my performance. It's always kind of, I feel like I'm always constantly having to justify why I'm doing things. Well, I did feel like that. I feel like during this pandemic and having to just kind of be myself and just share the small things in life, because I wasn't racing and traveling and wasn't just putting pictures up of beautiful mountains where, like, really no one has an opinion on that apart from that's beautiful. But I think that what I had to realize is that there is always going to be a portion of people who are going to tell you you're doing it wrong, or you should be better, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you should be doing that. And I think that that's just, like, for anyone of any age, is incredibly challenging, because you start to question yourself. Oh, should I not be doing this? Oh, is a vegan diet really hindering my performance? And it just, what it does is it just puts a grain of sand into your mind of just kind of like, am I doing everything wrong? Like, should I listen to this person? Is this person right? And I think that, when my body was changing, people were just like when I came third at Western States, everyone was like, I'm going vegan. Look at her. How amazing. Like that, if you'll win if I do this. And then when I gained weight back, it was like, oh, it's because she's following a vegan diet. Things so unhealthy. She's clearly like screwed up herself and her systems. And it's kind of like, you can't connect the dots in any order you want, or you can do that in your mind. But it's unfair of you to have these assumptions of me as someone who's living in Australia, living my own life. You see 1 second of it a day that I put on my story. And I think that it's just really hard to wrap your head around that people will talk, people will write, there'll be platforms. When I finished Western States in 2019 and I finished in, I don't know, probably like 18th place, I can't remember what I came. I finished that race in like the worst headspace of my life. If I have one regret in my running career, I don't want to use the word regret, but like, I disrespected that race. I ran it, but I didn't love it. I despised the fact that I was out there. I endured it, which is something that, like, the previous year I enjoyed it, not endured. And I finished the race and I went online, and the things that I read about myself are just something that, how can you say, like, I've just been running or walking, crawling, crying for 21 hours. And then to read that, you're a disgrace to Australian ultra running. She's clearly like gone south really, really fast. Like, that's the end of Lucy. She's fat, she's obese. Oh my God, like, what's happened? Oh, this is what I heard happened. Oh, it's obviously because she did this and this. And you're just kind of like reading it and you're like, you have no idea what's going on. And this kind of stuff just fuels, because people, they see that and they go, oh, if that's okay to say, then I'll just give my opinion as well. And it just kind of becomes this snowball effect, which that grain of sand in my brain became a whole bloody sandcastle by the end of 2019.
Thank you to Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been using Inside Tracker for many years now. It is a great way to see the difference between what is right and what is right for you. The answer is in your data, just you, specific you. So Inside Tracker recognizes that no two bodies are the same. We are all unique, and our nutrition plan should be too. It's going to help you optimize your body using science and technology to deliver an ultra personalized guidance through their experts. They're going to guide us to our goals, guide you to your goals through their cutting edge algorithmic engine. It's going to analyze your blood, your DNA, your lifestyle habits, and guide you to goals with actionable recommendations. They're going to tell you what you need to do and why. It's going to track your progress and be able to adjust based on real-time feedback from your body. So all you're going to do is you're going to set yourself up to go get yourself some blood work. You're going to tell them a bit about yourself, about your habits, about your lifestyle. They're going to set you up with a goal-oriented action plan along with nutrition, fitness, and lifestyle recommendations that are going to be based on these ultra personalized recommendations that they have for you based on which of your numbers from your blood work are in the needs work category, the at risk, and optimize. So then you know which things you need to work on. They're going to give you specific things to consume that work for you and your body, and you'll be able to track your progress. So as your body improves, your blood biomarkers are going to change as well, and you will retest and see how you're doing. It is customizable, it is simple, it is based on you. There is a reason so many people are loving Inside Tracker. You will see it all over the place, but I cannot recommend them enough for what you are going to get with this personalized service. So my friends, you as a Running for Real listener and a friend of mine can get yourself 20% off the entire website by going to insidetracker.com/Tina. That will get you a special offer, and you can check out their plans. You can see which one works for you, and you can get yourself set up to go get tested. There are testing facilities all over the US, so you don't have to worry about not being able to find one. I guarantee you there is one near you. Thank you so much to Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode.
That grain of sand in my brain became a whole bloody sandcastle by the end of 2019.
No, of course it did, and I'm so sorry you had to work through that. And I want to talk about that Western States in a minute, but yeah, just it's tough, and that's and I hope listeners. I would hope most people listening aren't the kind of person who would do that, but also it's even just in maybe some celebrity that you follow along with, or reshare something, or pass it along. Like everyone was a child. Everyone has someone who loves them. Everyone is just a human. So yeah, we've just got to rethink before we can, just continue perpetuating this trend that is happening. And a little funny story just to off that. When I had my first daughter, I remember her being about probably 13, 14 months old, and I was weaning her off breastfeeding. And I put on my social media one day about oh, I've given Bailey almond milk because supposedly it tastes more like breast milk, so it's easier for them to switch. And someone wrote back to me and said, oh, you know that you should give children whole milk. Why are you giving them vegan food? And I said, so then I responded with a post or a story saying, I'm not giving her almond milk. I plan on switching to whole milk. I just have heard that almond milk tastes closer. And then sure enough, I get messages saying, why are you giving your baby whole milk? You should be giving them almond milk. And at that point, I remember thinking I can't win. I can't win. There's no way around this. I tried to do a rebuttal, and then it got flipped at me the other way. So that was my moment where I was I give up. What is the point in trying? Because everyone's got an opinion about what I should be feeding my child. So yeah, that was a funny thing. But getting back to Western States, were you in that mental headspace from the start, or was that something that as you slipped down the field, you just spiraled?
No, I was in a bad headspace. Probably on January 1, 2019, I went for a run. And on January 1, 2018, I started training for Western States. So I was it was kind of this great, stepping into the new year, new me, here we go again, Western States, round 2, let's do it. And I remember rolling my ankle really badly. And I remember just thinking I don't know what it was about that, but it felt like this is a sign that this is going to be a really challenging year. And I think that I had lost the race of Western States before I'd even begun. when I stood on that start line in Olympic Valley, I just remember thinking, I'm just so embarrassed. Like, this is just, I'm not showing up my best version of myself. All 360 people here are so proud to have gotten into this race. They were how I was in 2018. They'd dedicated so much time and energy and racing and running and kilometers and miles into their legs to be ready. And they were going to fight to make it across the Western States course to Auburn. And I didn't feel like that. I felt like, oh, here we go again, like 100 miles. Gosh, this is, but then I was kind of like, okay, let's try and find that flow state that I found for the first 100 Ks of Western States 2018. I didn't look at my watch for, 9 hours of the first Western States I did because I was just loving it. I was so excited. There was an article written about me that was like, Lucy ran Western States, like bringing home a golden retriever for the first time. She was just wide-eyed, super stoked, just like looking everywhere, high-fiving everyone. And I was just so kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in this position. I didn't come here to lead the race. I'm in front of Courtney freaking Duwater. Like, what is going on? And then, but in 2019, I looked at my watch for the first time, probably a mile in, and went, is that all we've done? And the moment I did that, I knew this is just going to be a day where I'm just going to be like, oh, at this point, I remember feeling really good last year and I don't feel that. And it was comparison. And I was in the top 10 for like 80 miles. I wasn't having a bad race, but I was in a bad space, and you can't outrun a bad space. And I remember picking up my brother, and he'd been so keen to pace me, and he was the only reason why I kept running, was because I was like, I just want Josh to run from Forest Hill down to the river with me and share that with him. And then once you're at the river, you might as well just get to the finish line. And it became more about being stubborn. And I remember Sally McRae picking me up, and she'd paced me the year before, and we'd absolutely crushed that last bit. And that year in 2019, we walked, and I just was like a foul person to be around. And it was a very humbling experience, but it made me think, like, I never want to be in that position again, where I don't respect the race distance, respect the race, respect the people, the bib I'm wearing. Like, I could have given that to someone else that year and they could have had an amazing experience, because I said I regret it. I don't, because I learned so much from it, but it was kind of like, definitely I finished that, and then I pulled out of the 2 races that I had after that, because I was like, I don't love this anymore. And I've always said that I would stop the moment that I outran my love for running.
So I know you said you don't regret it. You learned so much, and I really want to hear about those things in a minute, but could you have done anything to change, or do you think that's just the nature of when you finish that well, especially kind of not maybe a surprise, but when you run to your potential on that day, and then you go back to that same course? Like, I mean, listeners may not be finishing 3rd or 18th at Western States, but they can probably relate to this in terms of their own, like a hometown race or a golden race for them. Was there anything you think you could have done differently?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. After 2018 Western States, I should have rested. I should have stopped. I just kind of had this, you love being fit, and I loved that I was so strong and I could just go out and run, and it was easy and effortless. And it still felt that. Like, I was, even a few days after, I was running in Mexico and we were surfing, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to run at all. I'd be so sore and stiff, but I was fine. And so I was like, great, I'm just going to roll in to keep training. And then I'm going to do OCC in Europe. And then I'm going to come home via Hong Kong. I'm going to race Lantau 70. And then I'm going to come to Australia, and I'm going to do my local 100K. And I just kept going. I kept lining up, and I was still doing really well. And I was like, this is easy. Like, I've got this sport sorted. And I always think that the moment you think that, something's going to happen that says, no, Lucy, you have not got it. And here's like life just tapping you on the shoulder to say, hey, dude, you're not invincible, and like, just stop. And if I'd rested and just gone and just lived off that high of just Western States and been like, I just came third at Western States. Screw the rest of the year. I'm in off season. Like, hello, Australian summer. But the thing that does my head in about this sport, or any sport, I guess, I don't know, but you cross the finish line and I swear to God, the first thing you're asked is like, that's great. What's next?
What's next? Yeah.
And it kills me because you're constantly like, oh yeah, right. Like I need something else. Okay. Like, and then everyone's going to UTMB and it's kind of like, oh, well, of course, like I've got to be there as well. And it's just, like in the sport of 100 miles, like you just don't back up like that and you shouldn't. You look at someone like Francois Dehane or Courtney DeWater, they're not racing all that much. And they also just kind of can chill out. They go home to their families. They go home and they just drink beer and eat nachos and chill out. And I think that we got to just stop rolling for a bit and just come to a standstill. And I didn't do that. And that was my undoing. And that's what led, like I rolled that ankle because I was so freaking tired that I put my foot in a stupid place. And that was like, I felt like the universe being like, if you're not going to stop just because you know you should in your head, we're going to like snap a ligament in your foot and we're going to make you sit down. And that was kind of like the catalyst for it all.
You said you were so tired, so you took a step, like a misstep. Were you aware that you were getting so tired, or were you still very much in a like kind of a delirious state of like, I'm fine, I'm great?
Oh, I was lying to myself for so long. I was like standing on start lines, doing small races, having success. So I was kind of like filling my cup up and living off that adrenaline. And, then kind of the Christmas season, I chilled out a little bit, had my, 3 days off for the year, God forbid. And then, it was kind of like, all right, fired up, Jan 1, like, here we go. But I was so tired. And there's no, like, if you chronicle from Western States 2018, I finished the race. I went and did the Hard Rock 100-mile course in 3 days. I then went and ran Transalpine, which is a 6-day, 250-kilometer mountain race. I then raced OCC in Chamonix. I then flew to Hong Kong. I raced Lantau. I raced 100K in Melbourne. This is in like 3 months. And they were all of like 8-hour, 9-hour, 10-hour races or days back to back to back. And I write it down and I'm like, you are an absolute goose, Lucy. Like, who do you think you are standing on all those start lines and doing that to your body? And I just like, there's absolutely like no other reason that everything had to unravel the way it did, because I was so disrespectful to, what I was putting my body through.
Did anyone say anything to you along the way?
No, of course not. Even like I would love, I think sponsors are incredible. They can fly you to places. They can put you into races, get you bibs. You don't have to qualify. We'll just look after you. Don't worry. You just show up and just perform. That's what you got to do. And I think that I would have loved, for my sponsor, Solomon, like they're a huge part of UTMB and it's really good, but I would have loved them to be like, hey, come along. You're still coming, but like, do you really need to do the race? Because we could use you to like crew someone else, or like still be there and be present, because that's what I ended up having to do in 2019 was that I flew to Europe. I pulled out of CCC at the UTMB races. And instead I was just like, well, I'm just going to crew like my friends and I'm just going to be here. And I'm going to show my sponsor, Solomon, that I can be an impactful at this event, whether I race or whether I don't.
Yeah.
And I think what was really challenging is that I was at this race, and when I pulled out before the race started, everyone was like, are you injured? Like, what's wrong? Why aren't you running? And I was kind of like, I'm not in. Like, I wish I just wrapped a strap around my ankle and gone, I hurt my ankle again. But I was like, no, it's just my head and my heart. I'm in this. And I learned from Western States that I won't stand on a start line if my head and heart aren't in it. And it's not. Like, I was in Chamonix, this mecca of trail running. And I was like, I really just want to sit at a cafe and like chill out and sit in the river and do something else. Like, I don't want to run. It doesn't interest me. And that was like a huge thing, because for 7 years I've returned to I've been at UTMB and I've always flown in and been like, oh, I want to do this run and my favorite place to go. And this time I was just like, I just want to get the chairlift up. Like, do we have to run?
So then you said there that you kind of almost wish that you had a wrap around your ankle so that people would kind of leave you alone. But I think this is a conversation that maybe we can transition to here that needs to happen, in that, we saw in the Summer Olympics, there was quite a few, or this year 2021 in general, there's been quite a few female athletes who have said, like, enough is enough. My body is okay. I like you said, my heart is not in it. My head is not in it. I am not in it. I need to do this for me. I need to be on the sidelines. And we saw, I don't know if they showed it in Australia, but here in the US, we saw Simone Biles be like an amazing cheerleader. Like, she didn't sulk off and stomp away and say, well, I'm not doing this, so I'm not going to support anyone else. But she stayed with her teammates and supported. And I started my business. I started running for real within a month of quitting running when I quit, because of not having a period and, just reaching that burnout point. And people always said to me, how did you like dive into supporting other people when you weren't running yourself? But I really think there's something magic there about being there for others when your stuff, maybe we don't want people to unravel, but when your heart has fallen out of love with the sport. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that part, because I don't think that's discussed enough.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I've always, when I've been in the sport, when I joined when I was 15, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of events. Obviously, like, the minimum age in Australia for ultra running and trail running is 18. And so for a lot of those events, I would go, my dad would race, and I would be on the sideline. And what I started to realize is that you can be on the sideline and you can just be miserable about the fact that you're not in the race, or you can be on the sideline and you can make people's day and you can make a huge impact. And by you just high-fiving someone or cheering, or even like if you read someone's name off their bib, first they're gobsmacked that you actually know them personally. You think you know them personally, but it brings a smile to their face. And what I realized is that the races where I was on the side, I would get way more messages after of people being like, oh, I just loved like the way you helped. Thanks for helping me with my bottles, or thanks for the high five, or the just being loud and cheering. It was just nice to have the atmosphere and brought a smile to my face. And, the races that I race at, obviously I want to race and I want to push myself. And so I don't have that chance to be a part of other people's day. And I think that's something that for 10 years in the sport, I've been like, I don't always want to be on the start line. Sometimes I just want to be there to fill someone else's bottles up and to just say something to someone, because when I'm racing, I know how much I appreciate that as well. And I believe, pay it forward. Karma is good. And if you're nice to people, people will be nice to you. And I think that, when my heart fell out fell out of running, not just fell out. I
hope not.
UTMB, yeah, not literally. At UTMB, it was kind of like I could either sit here and sulk about the fact that this was just turning into an absolute crumble of a year, or it was like, great, like I'm going to follow these people around through the night. I can do some social media and follow people's races because people love following this event. And, it was just kind of like this isn't like a bad thing. This is an opportunity. And it's something that with the right mindset, you can be that person that's out in the middle of the night, in the middle of the mountains, and just be like, great job, John. And John will remember that. And I think that that's just like, I think that people think that, to be a great runner, you have to be super fast. To be a great runner, you have to have the ability to, be able to run, but then also to be able to cheer on others. You give energy, you receive energy from cheering. And I think that being on the sideline and watching UTMB that year, I just remember thinking, like, I've made the right decision. I have no need to be out there. I feel no kind of regret or like, no, I should be out there. Look at them all. I was just like, man, look at them all. That's awesome. Good for them, because someone's got to do it, and it's not me this year.
Yes.
So I think that that's just kind of my philosophy is like, if you're injured or if you're not in it, it's still going to an event and volunteering or cheering or crewing or just doing something. It still fills you up just as much. I left Chamonix super stoked that I hadn't, like, I'd respected myself enough to pull out, but then also that I was able to still be a part of the sport that I love, because whilst I wasn't loving the act of running, I love the philosophy and the community of running. And that's more important to me than any race ever.
Thank you to Zencastr for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Zencastr is an all-in-one podcast production suite that gives you studio quality audio and video without needing all the technical know-how. It records each person locally, which means on their individual computer or device, then uploads this crystal clear audio and video right into the suite so you have high quality raw materials to work with. Now, if you are thinking about starting a podcast, maybe you have a podcast. It doesn't matter if you have 10 people that listen or 100,010. Podcasting remotely can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Zencastr's all-in-one web-based solution makes the process quick and painless the way it should be. If you know me, you've known that I've been podcasting for many years. I've tried all different platforms. I've tried all different types of things, and I am obsessed with Zencastr. I love it. I encourage everyone I know to use it because it is just so easy. Zencastr provides crystal clear sound and this gorgeous HD video. Not to mention, it is easy to use, especially for guests that aren't particularly tech savvy. There is nothing to download. They just click on the link and start recording. It is that simple. Zencastr is about making your podcast experience easy, and with everything from local recording to automatic post-productions in the tool, you don't have to leave your browser to get the episode done. I want you to have the same easy experience as I do for all my podcasting and content needs. If you go to zencastr.com/pricing and enter promo code running for real with the word for running for real, you will get 30% off your first 3 months. So go to zencastr.com/running for real. That's promo code running for real. You will get 30% off your order. Go to zencastr.com/running for real. Use promo code running for real. It's time to share your story. Absolutely agree. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So between 2019, you said about the pandemic being a good time to take the pressure off. Talk through, how did your journey unfold during the course of the pandemic? Now we can get on to talk about the challenge adventure that you took in March, was it, of this year? But so you can work your way up to that. But how did you heal that relationship with running during that time?
Yeah, so I got one race in 2019, and that was the Tarawera 100K. And again, I was so sure that, new year, I was going to be ready. I was going to be my heart was going to be back in it. And I just suffered through another 100 kilometers and felt like I let people down, felt like I let myself down. So from New Zealand, I flew to Nepal, and I went to Nepal to put on a camp, but also I had a week beforehand. And I found this kind of retreat is not what they would call it, but I think it's a very Western way to say. And it was this mindful, silent retreat, which is something I've always been super intrigued by. Yeah. So I went to this place and I arrived, with my Solomon rucksack and just in my Solomon running kit. And they were like, cool, just pop your clothes and everything and just put this robe on and, you'll get that stuff back in a week. And I remember being like, are we not going running? Am I not going to be able to go into I'm in Nepal. I'm here to see the Himalayas. And they kind of said, and he said to me, he goes, we come and we have our clothing. Our clothing is our representation of who we are. I look at you, you're clearly a sponsored athlete. You're clearly an athlete. But when you put this robe on, you're a completely blank slate, which is an incredible feeling. When I kind of was able to be like, I don't have to wear my running clothes, and we're not allowed to go running every day. We're here to meditate and to journal and to be very mindful. And it was just this week of we were silent for 4 days, and then we had 3 days of minimal speaking. But it was just the most incredible experience to just kind of not be who I guess people expect of me. And, at the end of the 4 days of being silent, you create these stories about people. And I was like, yeah, that dude, he must be a lawyer because he looks super uptight. And like that lady, she must be like pretty active because she's, like been really strong in the yoga and stuff we've done. And then you come out, I have these conversations with people, and you're like, wow, you're totally not the story that in my mind I'd created these assumptions and expectations of you. And they've done the same to me. And it made me think like we put out this image, and on Instagram, my God, we filter it, refine it, Photoshop it, whatever you want to do to it. But I came out of that trip in Nepal, and I came back early because of COVID. The borders shut, and I got home, and I was just like, we were given these rules in Australia. Melbourne, where I am, had the world's longest lockdown of 250 days or whatever. And I was like, I can wake up and I can put on different clothes and I can wear my hair differently. And this is like, I do my 1 hour of running a day, 5 kilometers from home, which were our rules. And I can just, the rest of that 24 hours, 23 hours in the day, I can be anything. And it was just like this really empowering. It sounds crazy because I was like, I can't go anywhere or do anything. But here I am in my house being like, I'm a blank slate. Every day I'm a canvas for what I want to represent. And I think that was just like, it gave me opportunity to explore new things. I wrote a cookbook because I was like, I'm so passionate about this. And I'm always asking for recipes. So here's a cookbook, and it sold out and was just insane. And then, like you say, I dreamt up this trip to the Larapinta, to the Northern Territory, and this kind of long pilgrimage that I wanted to represent all the things I am, and to put out a piece that was completely authentically who I am and not at all curated and just about the good, happy sides. I wanted to show the full slide that happens when you go out into the mountains. And it was just like, I felt like the pandemic, obviously it was an incredibly challenging time for so many, and myself, like this is probably the positivity. There was definitely days where I was like, who am I if I'm not racing and running and 1 hour a day? Like, what is that? Like, well, I warm up in an hour, can I have a little longer? But once I sunk into that, just like sinking into that experience in Nepal, I was just like, this is an opportunity. This is a great time for me to just like reset and represent what I want. And that's away from brands and logos and clothing and, this need to log miles every day. And instead, like, let's just log like experiences and making people smile under their masks, like be that cheerleader without the race, just kind of say something to someone. And I think that really kind of opened my eyes to how I want to move it in the future.
That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I've told you this, and it'll hopefully be well out of my system when this comes out. But so I currently have COVID. My kids got it, and I did I tell you that part? I told you about my kids, but I don't know if I told you. So I have it, and so, but the same as what you said, like this. How many days am I in? We've been maybe, I think it's a week today. Yeah, we've been inside. And I've gone out for, outside my house, but that's really about it. And every day, like, I haven't felt the need to like sort out my hair. I haven't felt like the need to be wearing a particular thing. I haven't, we've had to be creative with like, how about I rake the leaves so that my kids have a pile of leaves to jump in? That's something that normally I think I'd be like, I'll do that another day, but it does force you to think about what matters and how to like be present and like who you are. And I know that was a theme running through the movie Running Out, which I have not seen yet, but I will put links in the show notes, and I'm going to go watch it myself. But tell our listeners a bit about what this sorry, I've completely forgotten the name of the challenge you did, and yeah, tell them a bit about the movie itself.
Yeah, so in March this year, me and two boys, Josh Lionel and Brian Hines, we went up to the Northern Territory, which is in the middle of Australia. It's about a 4-hour flight, but we took a 2-hour flight and then drove for 2 days into the middle of Australia, into the heart centre. And I had always heard about the Larapinta Trail, which is a 231 kilometre track that runs to or from Alice Springs. And I guess what I was looking for was, like, I say a pilgrimage because I felt like it represented this new beginning. I really wanted to, my dad suggested this, actually. I mean, what dad suggests that you should go run 230K
I know.
to
I want to get onto your relationship in a minute. I'm so amazed by your relationship. Anyway.
Yes, he's an incredible man. But so he said, what you need to do, Lucy, is you need to go back to why you started running. You know, when you were 15 and you were running around on the trails, it was always about community, and it was about exploring places, exploring yourself, kind of pushing those boundaries and doing it in a way that kind of is just true to you, which, you know, I've always said, if I never raced another day in my life, I would still run. I don't love the racing. I like it. I enjoy it every now and then, but it's not a defining thing for me in my sport. And so this gap in lockdown opened up, and I'd met Josh and Brian at a small trip I'd done in between lockdowns. And I was like, guys, we're going. Like, I've got it sorted. Let's go. So my training going into running this track was 1 hour a day, 5Ks from home. Like, I was not in a shape to run that track, sorry. But my coach said to me, David Roach, he said, Lucy, when it gets over that kind of 50K mark, it becomes so much less about being fit. It becomes about being uninjured and about being stoked. And I was like, I am both of those things. I'm not injured because I haven't run that much, and I've been able to do all this silly foam rolling that I know I need to do every day and actually do it in lockdown. And I'm stoked because all I want to do is run more than 5 kilometers from my house and for more than an hour. And here I have this opportunity. And so we went up and we started, and it was just, you know, like, the track goes up and down, but my emotions and the whole experience was this absolute roller coaster that we were lucky enough to catch on film. And it was just the most incredible experience to spend 2.5 days out in the desert, traversing and listening to that inner voice of, you can do this, you can't do this, and navigation and everything. It was just like the most beautiful experience that put me in a position where it was kind of like, this is what matters. You know, when things are very simplified out there, you've got 2 guys crewing you, you've got your body, you've got food that you're going to eat, water that you need to drink. And, you know, things got really, really tough, and then they got really good. And then the community came out for the finish line. And I just said, this is why I love this sport. And this is what I want to do. I want to tell stories and tell my story. And I want to show places to people, and I want to create community. I want to bring people together, and running does that. And it breaks you down, and it builds you up, and it does everything. And that's what I think I was missing. I was so focused on the competition before and just being better than everyone else. Whereas on Larapinta, it was like, I just want to be better than I was a moment ago. I just want to help my future self every step of the way until I get to that finish line. And then I'm just going to sit down, take my shoes off, and have a good long rest as we ended up in another lockdown.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I love that journey that you've been on to figure that part of it out, and what you want your running to be. And as I said earlier, I'm very much in the same mindset with my own running right now. And I mean, I think it's hard for people to understand how anything could be better than winning and being at the top and being the one that people are like, oh, look, you know, look at what this person is doing at the front. But as you said, you're carving your own path, you're doing your own thing. And that doesn't mean you won't jump into races. But I really love this, like, part 2 of you. And so with that, you've been through a bit of a tough time recently with finding you'll have to tell me the name of the cancer that was in your eye, which has been removed, and you're in the process of, or I guess you're processing, you're recovering that. Tell the listeners about what happened there, and how did you emotionally handle that as a new challenge?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just been such a wild year. I kind of thought the Larapinta would be the hardest thing I'd do this year, and then I was thrown this kind of challenge. And I think the hardest thing was that we prepare for races, we prepare for big challenges, and mentally you're in a good headspace. And I actually went to the doctor to get my blood test back to check my iron levels, like every runner does. And I saw this new doctor who I'd not seen, and he said, something's on your eye, we got to get this checked. And it went from that to, right, this is going to be like a 4-week kind of process, because we're going to need to cut it out. And then we're going to, it's quite a special, like being on your eyelid, it's not like just like a bit of skin that we can just graft from somewhere else. This is like, it's in the tissue, which is really special. And so we need to preserve it. So there was kind of this special operation that was a two-part over 2 days thing. And then kind of my eye was then stitched closed for 2 weeks. And then actually like just over a week ago, I had it cut back open. And I think that it really made me, one, have this like great appreciation for our senses. You know, whenever you lose something, you're just like, oh my God, like it's like if you have a cold, you know, and you can't smell, and you're just like, I just want to be able to smell the good food in front of me. I just wanted to see what was on my left, because I couldn't for 3 weeks or 2 weeks. I was just, you know, walking into things and being hit by balls that were coming at me from the left. And I think like for me, it was one of those things where it was like, I can't change this. This is like, obviously it's really terrible thing. It makes me really upset that it is what it is. But then I also like, I've always come back to, I can control 2 things. I can control my effort and I can control my attitude. And so my effort being like, all right, you're going to need to like slow down and allow this to heal, and you're going to have to be patient, and you're going to just pace yourself through this. Like this is going to be a big endurance event. You're going to have checkpoints along the way, and you're going to have doctor's visits, and you're going to have tests, and you're going to have good days and bad days, and you're just going to embrace that and match your effort to how you feel. And then you have your attitude. And it was kind of like, initially I was like, I'm going off social media for the 2 weeks in between. I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want to do anything. But I've always been this kind of, whenever I've felt like, if I felt self-conscious, I've done the radical opposite, and I've gone running in a sports bra. And I've always tried to, I guess, to try and counter that and be like, no, you're fine. So I was on social media and I was like, great, this is it. Here's my eye patch, make a bit of a joke about it. Great timing with Halloween, whatever. But it was just kind of like, I wanted to, there's so many people that have ailments in their life. So many people go through these things and have these stories that I or you have never heard about. And I think that what I wanted to use this time to do is just like, this is going to allow me to slow down, and it's going to allow me to shift my perspective, literally. Like I only have half my vision to focus on, and that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to worry about what I can't see. And it was, you know, I didn't run. I ran in the last few days with one eye with my dog, and it was very unbalanced, but it was just nice to kind of to lift the heart rate a little bit. And then when I got the third surgery to open my eye back up, and it had been a success, and at the moment there's nothing there, but that's not to say it won't come back. It's just kind of like, you've got to appreciate what you have in this moment, because you could do anything and it could be taken away from you. I went to the doctors not to get my eye looked at. I went there to get a blood test. And then suddenly I had this list of things that was going to happen to me, and I needed to, you know, completely change my life around for a 5-week period almost. But I think that, again, like I didn't want to see it as like, this is a setback. I wanted to see this as like, this is a step forward. You know, this is going to be like another challenging thing that you overcome. And when you do stand on a race start line, there's so much to be grateful for, more than just like, oh, I get to race again. This is great. I'm going to like crush my competitors. It's like, God, like I'm so lucky that I've had the health system to look after me, and I'm here and I can see and I can run and I can move, and I've got people cheering on me left and right, and I've got friends to run with. And I think it's really kind of just made me just appreciate the smaller things, because really they became the big things, and they should stay that way. Like I want to, I'll never take a sense for granted anymore, because it was an incredibly challenging thing. But what really kept me going was community. And they didn't care that I wasn't running. It wasn't like I lost all my followers who were kind of like, oh, she's got like a weird eye and now she's not running anymore. It's like, this is the moment in time. And the community stepped up and they stood by my side. And every day, thousands of messages would come in, like, how are you doing today? You know, can I drop you off some food? Can I send you something? Or, this is a video of my dog or my kid to make you laugh. And, it's just like, wow, I'm not just a runner to these people. I'm their friend, and they care for me, and they care more about my headspace and my emotional state, not what I look like. And I think that's like a really powerful thing when you come from something like weight, which was always the focus, to like, no, this is like a real health thing, that this is, something I'm going to have to deal with. And it's kind of like, who gives a flying about what it looks like? The thing is that I can be a part of the community, and I can be out where I love in nature. And that's kind of what I've taken away from a really challenging few months.
Wow, you have been in quite the growth transition over the last 2 years. You have definitely used the pandemic to the best of your ability to grow as a human. And as I said at the beginning of this, you were the most raved about person that I have interviewed. And that was before the pandemic, most of the people I interviewed. So, just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And just that perspective reminder. Now, we're about to wrap up here, but I can't go without talking about the fact that you train with your dad, that you race together. That just sounds like an absolute dream, to have your dad be someone to share all those experiences with and encourage you to do challenges like this. Like, just tell us a little bit about how that is, because that just sounds incredible.
Yeah, my dad, I was, when we kind of went into lockdown, I was like, gosh, me and my dad, I've always traveled for so much of the year and kind of come back for a nice 2 months of catching up in the summer, and then I'd be gone again. And we've been in this house for, like I say, 2 years now. And I just have the greatest appreciation for what he brings to my life. He's always been, when I ran my first 100K when I was 15, there was a lot of controversy around that, whether a 15-year-old female should run 100Ks. And part of me being allowed to do it was that I had to run side by side with him. And at any point he could have said, you know what, Lucy, like, there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of concern around this. Let's just wait 4 more years until you're, or 3 more years until you're 18. And, but he backed me the whole way. He was like, perfect. We're going to do this. You're training really well. You're super happy. This is what you want to do. And I remember him standing on the start line with me of that race, the Surf Coast Century 100K. And he looked at me and he said, Lucy, like, there's a lot of people that want to pull you out. And what you need to do is you need to smile your whole way through it as a middle finger to those people, to kind of say, I am here because I want to be here, and I'm doing what I love, and I'm doing it with someone I love, like my dad, and screw you all. And that's always been his thing. He's like, if you do what makes you happy, and when it's challenging, you smile because you remind yourself and you tell me that you're okay and this is going to be fine. And I think that, he reads every comment on my social media, every single one of them. And he'll be like,
it's really heartbreaking sometimes for him to see some of those things.
It is, but it's so nice because he knows that I've read every single one of them. And so he'll bring up the ones that I'm internalizing and creating all these stories in my head about, and we'll talk it out. And we have this incredible honesty with each other of, he would say, what do you think that says about the person that said that? Or how does that make you feel? And, is this like bringing you down? Let's talk about it. Let's just get it off our chest and kind of move forward. And to have someone like that is incredible. And then when I went and did the Larapinta, which, like I said, was his kind of suggestion, I called him at one point because I was struggling, and I happened to have a bar of reception, and he was the only person in the world I would call. And all he said on the phone was like, Lucy, you've just got to back yourself. You've got to do what you know how to do best, and that's put one foot in front of the other. And I think that like he's 60 years old, and we run together on my easy runs and his tempo runs. But it's just like this incredible, my favorite thing about running is the way that it breaks people down, and you're completely vulnerable. If you go running with someone, you finish the run and you're like, oh my God, I just told them things that I wouldn't tell my therapist.
Yeah.
And with my dad, as a 15-year-old, we'd run along. And I think because I wasn't like looking him in the eye and sitting across from him at the dinner table, I would just talk about everything and anything. And so we've always had this like, nothing's out of bounds. Tell me how you feel. He recognizes that, he never stepped in when things were spiraling before Western States, but he was kind of like, I thought you were just happy. And I was like, well, it's easy to kind of look happy and to smile, but you can also fake a smile. And then he kind of said like, he looks back and he's like, I didn't know if you'd listen to me. And I was like, you're the only person in the world I would listen to. So he's just been there through it all. And, he's just getting stronger and stronger as an athlete himself. And I just, I really just admire him for all that he's given me and all the words of advice and the acts of love and kindness, no matter what state I'm in.
Oh, amazing. That is so sweet and just incredible. That thank you for sharing that with him. And what a guy. Really, I mean, so much wisdom there. That's amazing. Okay, so I would love for you to share, if people want to just, to add to the hamster wheel of social media, if people want to follow along with you, where should they go?
Yeah, so the best place to follow me is on Instagram. So I'm Lucy_Bartholomew. And then that just gets shared across to Facebook. So it's kind of the same. I wouldn't bother doing both. And that's really it. I mean, you can follow along on Strava, but it's kind of just running.
I'm sure people love that too. Well, Lucy, I appreciate you sharing your vulnerability, honesty, and just the bright light that you are. Appreciate everything you've shared with us today, and look forward to seeing what 2022 brings.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I mean, the list of guests that you've had is incredible. And also, thank you for being you. I mean, this is what we need more of, is these conversations. And I think it's awesome what you do. So thank you.
Hi, friends. Just a quick message to say a big thank you to the Running for Real team. While I may be the face of Running for Real and the voice behind the podcast, there are a group of people who are working tirelessly to provide everything that runners could need within our community, to make our community stronger, better, and evolve and grow and learn from one another. We are working really hard to make Running for Real the place we believe it can be within our community. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone on our team. That is Victoria, Stacey, Sandy, Sally, Maria, Kelsey, Kat, Jeremy, and Erica. I appreciate each and every one of you and the hard work that you put in. Now let's get back to the show. Oh, what a special woman she is. That was such a pleasure to have Lucy on the show. And stay tuned. Lucy and I may have something exciting planned for next year. Something that is really out of my comfort zone, but I think it will be an amazing experience for both of us. So stay tuned with that. And I want to thank her again for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that episode and getting to know a different side of her, even if you have already listened to and heard Lucy on many interviews in the past. Now you can find links to everything we talked about today in the show notes at runningforreal.com/episode 278. And I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. You can also find links to their stuff in the show notes. Tracksmith, 5% of your order will go to Runners for Public Lands as a donation, which is a wonderful campaign that Tracksmith is doing to support the running community. Runners for Public Lands is an amazing nonprofit. I also want to thank Inside Tracker. You can get 20% off by going to insidetracker.com/Tina. That's going to get you 20% off. As I just mentioned, I had an amazing feedback, information about my blood work when I've just had mine done, and I'm really excited about it. And I just said that really American. Excited. I am really excited about what it showed. So go to insidetracker.com/Tina to get that 20% off. It will help you see what's going on the inside, and it helps you feel confident. I can tell you that right now. And finally, thank you to Zencastr. Zencastr is the platform that we use to record these podcasts. If you are thinking about starting a podcast or you are a podcaster yourself, I 100% recommend Zencastr. We use it for Running Realized. We use it for this show. And you can get 30% off your first 3 months as a friend of mine by going to ZENCASTR without the E, ZENCASTR.com and use code running for real. That's the word running for real for 30% off your first 3 months. So go check it out. Thank you so much again to Lucy. I will see you on Monday for a together run and Friday for a regular episode.